Start. Okay, I'm recording now. So we're going to get started. Our first panelist is Katie Lamke. She's a Bumblebee conservation specialist from the Xerces Society. And she's going to be speaking about a really cool project she's involved with. So let's hear from Katie.
All right, let me get the screen shared. All right, you guys seeing the full screen there?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so my name is Katie. I work for the Xerces Society to coordinate the Nebraska Bumblebee Atlas, which a lot of you have probably heard about online here. It's a collaboration between the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and Xerces with funding from the Nebraska Environmental Trust. And we are a community science project that's aimed at tracking and conserving the native species of bumblebees that we have in the state here. We're choosing bumblebees because they're a very valuable pollinator. They're very intelligent and innovative species. It allows them to access a wide variety of flowers for pollen and nectar. They're also very charismatic and easily recognizable for a lot of us. You know, we know what the honeybee is, and many of us are able to also distinguish a bumblebee. And lastly, we all know that pollinators need our help right now. And when we look at bumblebee diversity, the areas in red and yellow here on the map are where you find the most diversity. So out on the West Coast and up in some of the mountainous regions is where you're going to find more species. And in Nebraska, we have about 20 different species here. And just like you would with plants or birds, you have to get the ID book for the West Coast and the East Coast because you're going to have a mix of species. And sadly, about 25% of bumblebees in North America are in decline. And that's from a status assessment that was done back in 2014. And of those species, 4 of them are listed as at risk in Nebraska. And so to help figure out what's going on with these bumblebees and how we can protect them, the Atlas has divided Nebraska up into a bunch of different grid cells. And when a volunteer signs up for the project, they essentially select one of these areas to go and survey in the state. And once you've selected your area, you do a training, which all of our training is online now because of COVID. But there's some informational videos on there, the handbook, some identification guides. And once you've got a pretty good grasp of what you're supposed to do out in the field, then you go swing a net and you see what you can collect wherever you're surveying. It's a catch and release survey, so no bumblebees are harmed in it. And after you've collected the data, you submit it. So then we get this really nice baseline data set of bumblebees distributed throughout Nebraska. And that then feeds into Bumblebee Watch, which is just a really large database of bumblebee observations throughout North America. And since 2014, this data set here has about 75,000 observations. And having this many records of bumblebees really helps us to improve our understandings, you know, what species exist in what places, what plants they're utilizing, what times of the year they need what plants, where they're nesting. And so if you want to get involved with the Atlas, our website is nebraskabumblbeeatlas.org. We've also got an Instagram, a Twitter, and a Facebook. And that's my quick and dirty presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Katie. And great job getting that all down in 5 minutes. That's quite the project to get down in 5 minutes. So thank you so much. So our next panelist is Caitlin Leary. She's a conservation education coordinator with Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium.
Hi, everybody. So I am going to quickly give the overview and then I'll switch over to a little PowerPoint just to show some pictures. But I'm going to talk about amphibian conservation and some of the citizen science programs that we have revolving around amphibian conservation. A lot of our citizen science projects actually kind of took a halt for COVID this year, just with everything going on. And so one that we were able to actually kind of start this year was something called the Resident Amphibian Stewardship Project. And so we received a mini grant from Nebraska Academy for Sciences, and it was a public information and education mini grant. And so what we received, and I have them here, is we got 2 wildlife acoustics. So these are mini wildlife acoustics. And so what we were able to do is at our wildlife safari park, which is located in Ashland, Nebraska, which is 30 miles west of Omaha Zoo here, we're able to set these out and record based on Frogwatch USA's recording guidelines, record different times at night that we can hear frog calls. And that way, what we want to do with that is have a steady population study of what we have out at that park and on grounds. And why that's so important is amphibians are indicator species because they have permeable skin, which makes them really susceptible to changes in water and air quality. And so we have some citizen science programs that focus on water quality. And so if we know those specific populations out at the park, we're able to really focus on them and track those populations and line them up with our citizen science programs that are to do with water quality and see what are the connections. One variable that we didn't really plan for was our park was closed for people to walk around in. And so we kind of got recordings of populations that are there without any people or any interactions with humans. And so that was pretty unique. And so I'm excited to see the data on that. I'm gonna screen share and kind of give you a map of what the park looks like. Okay. So can everybody see that? I'm gonna put it up a little. Okay, so this is a map of our wildlife safari park. And so here, what is in those points are the points of water that we put these recorders out at. And so the big one is Frog Lake over here, where we usually have trails with people who walk on those trails. This year we didn't have that, so we got a pretty unique data set of no human interaction, like I said before. This is just a better picture of our wildlife acoustic that we have. So inside, we're able to calibrate with a phone app exactly those times to have it start recording and have it stop recording. And like I said, we use the Frogwatch US guidelines for that. And then what we do from there is once we have all those recordings, we're able to put that into the computer and put it onto this. So this is a software that we also got with the grant. And you put those there and then it will categorize them with just a click of a button. It'll note the same sounds and categorize it, which is where our citizen science comes into play. And anybody can do that, and anybody can put the data in. And then if somebody is Frogwatch trained, which is another part of this project, we can also have them listen to the data and note what sounds they hear, whether it's an American bullfrog, a chorus frog, all the different species. If they're able to note that, they can say, oh, this group of this survey was American bullfrogs, and I know that because I'm Frogwatch certified. And so those are the parts of the project that just end up giving us exactly what populations we have out at the park. And currently, we just finished kind of putting out those recorders. So we had them out from March until August. And so
just 1 minute.
We're gonna have.
All good, just 1 minute.
Okay. Oh, I thought you meant wait 1 minute. Yeah, so right now we have high schoolers in our zoo academy that are going to start that data processing and analyzing those frog calls. And so those will be like our first citizen scientists able to do that. And so here is a picture of kind of an area that we have put them up. And so you can see we literally just tie it up. And it's by an area that we know has amphibians. And then hopefully you guys all can hear this, but I'll kind of play a recording. Oop. Let's see if we can get that back. All right, I don't know if you guys all can hear this. Thumbs up, can we hear that? Yeah, a little bit. So there you can kind of hear a frog call if you can hear it, but that's an American bullfrog. And so we're able to note that if all that software went into a data set with all those sounds, we can note that as an American bullfrog. So yeah, that's all I got.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. That was great. Thank you. Okay, and our next panelist is Louise Lynch-O'Brien. She's an assistant professor of insect biology with the University of Nebraska. Oh, unmute. You got it. There you go.
There we go. Okay. Okay, great. All right, so I'm here representing Tic Tag Go. So I don't have cute fuzzy bumblebees for you or adorable singing amphibians. I have 8-legged ticks. The objective of this project really started a couple of years ago when the deer tick was found here in Nebraska, and it is now established. It was found around Omaha by an entomology grad student. And so the purpose of the project is to try to establish baseline data on tick distributions just in general in Nebraska, and really to raise awareness. So we use iNaturalist as a platform to get people to share any interactions that they have with ticks. And it's a passive surveillance program right now. We are not asking people to go out and find them, but rather when they find, if they go for a hike or they walk their dog and they find ticks on themselves or on their pets, that they would take a photo and then post it to iNaturalist. And the iNaturalist website and app really kind of shows a lot of the activity. So it's a passive surveillance program, and also in our case with COVID-19, the program has been a little passive this year as well. The interesting thing about the deer tick is that it can be active during the winter months if the days are warm enough. So it behaves a little differently than the ticks that we're used to here in Nebraska. And also they're quite a bit smaller. So that's really what we're focused on. We would love for people to share the data. It will more provide an opportunity for the researchers that are involved to follow up. And then each of those times that people reach out to us, it's a chance for us to interact with them directly about how to properly remove ticks. So there's awareness and behavior change goals that we have for the program. And it started out with myself and Jody Green from Nebraska Extension. And then we've had some additional faculty from UNL and then also from Creighton University join on. And so sort of in the background, the gentleman from Creighton offers, he will actually test ticks that are found for different diseases, but it's not, we haven't built the program enough where we're actually accepting specimens in the mail yet. We're not that organized yet, but we are tracking the species here. And so you can see just from the iNaturalist website or the project page for Tic Tag Go, if you're not familiar with iNaturalist, I highly recommend poking around there and looking for different types of projects. But we have about 21 people that have shared at least one observation, and we're always looking for photos to accompany those observations. And so far, there's only 3 species that we've found. The other thing is that there are other tick species that are moving. Their ranges are moving in North America. And so our hope is that once we kind of establish somewhat of a database on what's found here, and raise people's awareness about what to look for, that we can kind of have a monitoring, we could have monitoring in place to help track if any of these other species like the Asian longhorn tick, should that one move into the area, we might have people kind of help detect it in the state earlier. So I think I've answered all of the questions. Some of the highlights is that we, again, we have the new tick species here, and it is listed here. We have a couple of observations, and hopefully the program will grow in the next couple of years. We're also active on Facebook, and that's probably the place that we're most active right now, just trying to raise awareness about how to properly remove ticks, because there are a lot of awful myths and ideas on how to properly remove them safely. Without increasing your chance of contracting anything. And the best way to do it is just using tweezers. No gasoline, no candles, no nail polish, anything like that. So thanks, and I think.
All right, thank you. And we had a good question specifically for you, Louise, but we'll save it
Okay.
for the end. We'll hold on to that. Okay, and our next presenter is going to be Alie Mays. She's a Learning Center Supervisor with the Lincoln Parks and Recreation.
All right. Oh goodness. There we go. Okay, so I'm talking about something a little different. I'm not talking necessarily about a project, but rather a network. So Citizen Scientists of Nebraska is a network focused on increasing and improving citizen science throughout the region. So this network was officially established in April of 2019, and it came from a need to just know what citizen science projects were out there. So once this network was created, we developed our mission of providing a platform for communication, collaboration, and resource sharing to increase awareness and participation in regional citizen science efforts. We established a core group. So these are the people who are responsible for moving the network forward and meeting our goals. We were lucky that we got a core group that's dedicated to our mission and from a diverse array of different organizations. We also, this year, were able to hire an undergraduate assistant thanks to a grant from the Nebraska Academy of Sciences. Our network membership spans the state, and we are focused to providing support for citizen science throughout the whole state. With that in mind, recently our Panhandle representative moved on to a different position. So if you're out in the Panhandle and interested in representing out that way, let us know. We're looking for someone. We were able to identify 3 target audiences. So this is the program leaders. So this is individuals or organizations who are interested in conducting volunteer-driven science. Also educators, both formal and informal. So citizen science fits in really well with the Nebraska state standards, and it provides skills-based experience for learners. And also the general public. So this includes both participants and others who are interested in citizen or community science. I also want to point out that Citizen Scientists of Nebraska, since the beginning, has been focused on providing support for historically underrepresented audiences in STEM, and that's something we're very focused on moving forward. So some of our network focuses include providing a project directory. So we know from the research that when volunteers are matched to projects or project tasks from the very beginning that they are well matched for, that increases retention of those volunteers, which helps projects save time and money in retention and training of those volunteers. It also provides stability for the projects, and in turn, it provides the volunteers with an increase of satisfaction. So we want to provide a way for volunteers to find a project that fits them. And also we know that conservation doesn't happen, or citizen science itself doesn't happen in a vacuum. So we want to provide a way for different projects to find each other who might be able to share or collaborate. Another focus we have is volunteer recognition. We do this through our Spotlight series. So this is just a way that we can provide outstanding volunteers recognition for their contributions. So we have project facilitators nominate exceptional volunteers, and we share out this through our social media and also our listserv. This also acts as a way for potential volunteers to see other people participating in citizen science and realizing that they too can do the same thing. We also would like to provide an array of outreach. So we want to be intentional about this outreach. So there's that statewide focus. We want to think about how people receive information. We want to include stakeholder feedback, and we want to make sure we're reaching diverse audiences, including through bilingual materials. We want to provide in-person programming and record sessions when possible, because not everybody can come to a session. Maybe they have time restraints, or also maybe geographically they're unable to attend. So we want to make sure to be as inclusive as possible. We also do outreach through social media and through our Google group listserv. We're hoping to get all of these efforts on the way to be pushed out for Citizen Science Month in April 2021. And this will just be a really great way to raise awareness about citizen science in the state and get more people involved. Sorry, my 5 minutes is up, everybody. So here's a few ways you can connect with us. We're on Facebook, through our listserv, and then also our website. If you have questions, you can reach out to Louise or I.
Great, thanks so much, Alie. Okay, and our next panelist is going to be Jamie Bachman. She's a wildlife educator from the Northern Prairies Land Trust.
Okay. All right, that's all happening, right?
Looks good.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. My little chat here will be about how our team utilized citizen science in light of everything that happened in March. Nebraska Bird Month is typically it's to celebrate and raise awareness, public awareness, and concern for migratory birds. We have a Nebraska Bird Month website, and it's a place where across agencies and groups, people can put all of their birding events during the month of May. That's the month that we celebrate Nebraska Bird Month. So you can go to the Nebraska Bird Month and you can find all the in-person events, the bird walks, how to make bird houses, all of those things, activities and resources. But with COVID, no in-person events. So we hatched this plan, and I made a good effort to put together some instructional videos using citizen science platforms. Nest Watch, and I created a little bit of instructional videos for Nest Watch, Celebrate Urban Birds, and Merlin Bird ID app. I'm not gonna go into those because I don't really have that much time, but they could all be found on our on the Nebraska Bird Month website. And our big push was for the Nebraska Bird Month 2020 challenge, and we used iNaturalist as the platform to do that, and made an instructional video of that as well, so everybody could kind of figure out how to do it. It was an amazing, we had a whole month of bird observations. Here's a little map of the, for visual stimulation of the participants here. And here are our results for that. We had 4,533 observations in 207 species, 351 observers, and that's 86% research grade observations. And so we were very pleased with those results. And so when Pollinator Week came around, Nebraska Pollinator Week, we decided to use the same platform to engage our audience in Nebraska. Here are some points of observations for Pollinator Week. Oh, and Pollinator Week is, to celebrate pollinators and to raise awareness about, conservation needs for pollinators. I forgot that part at the beginning there. Here are, we had over 1,000 observations in just 1 week of 251 species. That was pretty exciting for that too, in just a small amount of time. We have, like I said, we had a Nebraska Bird Month website. If for you to participate, I'm assuming that we are going to use these challenges and iNaturalist in the future, because it was such a great way for all across Nebraska to engage people in citizen science and in the goals of Nebraska Bird Month and Nebraska Pollinator Week. So we have websites for both of those events, the nebraskabirdmonth.org, nebraskapollinatorweek.org. We also advertise events all month long and all week long on Facebook and Instagram on the Nebraska Project Wild social media pages. Next month, Nebraska Bird Month will be in May. It's May every year, and it will be 2021. And then in June 21st to 27th, 2021 will be Nebraska Pollinator Week. So I just zipped right zippity-doo-dah through that for you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Jamie. And I put both of those websites in the chat for anyone that's interested. And I also put the Citizen Science of Nebraska website in the chat as well. Panelists, if you have any of your other websites that you want to put in your chat, feel free to do so for sure. Those are the ones I knew I was familiar with. Okay, thank you so much. So we have one more panelist, and we're going to now hear from Daniel Snow. He's a laboratory director and research professor with the University of Nebraska. Oh, Daniel, you're on mute. Just unmute.
Oh,
there,
okay.
Perfect.
And now I'm on. Sorry for the delay. So I'm going to talk about our Know Your Well project. It was funded in 2017 and really was a youth-centered groundwater science literacy project. It involved almost 20 schools between 2017 and 2019. We got an additional grant and added 5 additional schools from across Nebraska. Let's see if I can get it to advance. Next. There we go. The project was aimed at training high school students through, help with their teachers, but we were working one-on-one with the students on how to sample and test groundwater samples from private or domestic wells and learn about factors impacting groundwater quality across the state. It involved, as I mentioned, teachers from 19 different schools between 2017 and 2019, and we have 5 additional schools. As you can see from the map, we have a pretty widespread across the state. The activities involved 2 school visits. In general, some required 3 or 4, but most were 2 school visits where my graduate student provided introduction on groundwater well construction and things that can contribute to groundwater contamination. He taught the students how to use the Nebraska Department of Natural Resources well registration database to locate registered wells within their school district area, around 20 to 50 miles radius around their schools. And then he supervised practice well sampling and using the test kits that we provided. As part of the project, we developed a Know Your Well app that's available for iPhones. And we're planning to develop a new app to go on an Android platform. In the first 3 years of the project, we had roughly 150 participants that collected and tested water from around 200 wells. The students also collected and set split samples to the Water Sciences Laboratory for comparison to their results. All of the data, including the observations of the students, was uploaded to the Know Your Well website through an online database and made available to each school individually to use in school research projects. We have additional training and promotional materials available on the knowyourwell.unl.edu website, and they're already kind of primed for additional projects. And this graph shows kind of a comparison between the student results and the laboratory tests. Each color bar is a comparison of nitrate concentrations measured by the students on the left, and then the laboratory tests on the right. As you can see, there's really pretty good agreement in nitrate concentrations measured for almost all the schools. We measured pesticides, metals, nitrate, ammonia, hardness, and I think 3 or 4 other parameters. So it was a pretty comprehensive test. And the results for the private well testing were provided to the well owners in exchange for cooperating on the project. So finally, we're in the process of getting funding to transfer leadership to Nebraska Natural Resources districts so that they can work one-on-one with schools within their boundaries. We want to get some additional funding to build curriculum that we can provide to the schools and really kind of grow the science literacy project, and also look at ways that we can improve vocational training and academic recruiting in science and engineering programs at the university. And then finally, I'd like to see us grow this Know Your Well network of schools to go beyond the boundaries of the state. And that's all I had to say.
Great, thanks so much, Daniel. And I also put your Know Your Well website in the chat for our participants if you're interested in seeing that. So thank you so much, all our panelists. That was fantastic. I know that was probably difficult to get through your amazing projects in a quick 5 minutes, but you did a great job. So we're going to start our discussions now. We have some questions that we're going to get started with. As we get started, I encourage the participants to be thinking about questions for our panelists as well. And as they come to you, feel free to put them in the chat. We have some that we're going to get started with. And so I think we'll get started with, how about the question, what have you found to be the most rewarding aspect of your work in citizen science? And so any one of our panelists can start to answer this question, and then we'll just take it from there.
I'll go quick. I'll try to keep it quick. I got the opportunity to study some of the science experiences that citizen scientists have for my dissertation. And what I've loved about working in citizen science is how involved the volunteers are. And I think they sometimes are not credited as much as they could be. And what I love is how much impact they can have beyond the program leaders. I think we often think of how the program leaders influence, what the volunteers know and what their behaviors are. And I've loved exploring how the volunteers can affect people in their social circles, in their families, with friends, with neighbors, things like that. So I love, it's made me rethink what it means to collaborate with volunteers.
Excellent, thanks Louise. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll jump on top of that comment. I think with the switch to everything being virtual this year, it's been a little bit easier to see how people are transferring and spreading that information, when they're sharing something on Instagram or Facebook, but the project is tagged. It allows us to see what they're enjoying about the project, whether it's something they found that wasn't a bumblebee, maybe they saw a new flower, maybe they're exploring a new area in Nebraska together, and then all the additional comments of their friends that see that. It's just really exciting to see how that knowledge is spreading.
I'll add to that. I've really enjoyed working with the youth, and especially seeing that they get a chance to present what they're doing to the adults. Several of the schools gave presentations to NRD board meetings, and actually 2 groups presented at last fall's Nebraska Water Conference. So it's really exciting to see the students that participate in our citizen science project present and then get really positive feedback from the adults.
Yeah, I agree. Working with youth in citizen science, I think at some point everybody's favorite subject in school was science because it was hands-on. And so putting that like purpose behind science, I think really drives youth to actually want to become that in their post-high school careers. You know, maybe you know, for me, it's rewarding to see people wanting to become scientists because we always need more of those. So that's a really cool part about working with youth in citizen science.
Yeah, it makes science more attainable almost. It makes it more just like real to those that haven't, the youth that haven't actually gone to participated in like a level college class or in their careers.
Yeah, and it shows even working with postgrads and adults in their life, it shows them that they didn't have to go and do 10 years of school to be a scientist. Anybody can be a scientist. Science is all around us. And so it's a really cool way to get everyone involved.
That's great. Thanks so much for answering our first question. Our next question is, what are some of the challenges you faced during your work with citizen science? And what takeaways have you learned from those challenges that might help others interested in the field?
Amber, can I actually, there's one question that's in the chat before we move on. Is it okay if we just?
Oh yeah, we can get to that. Yeah,
I think it might connect with what we were just saying.
sure.
Have you
Yeah,
found
so the one in the chat is, have you found a specific demographic more interested in helping with citizen science? Is that students, retired, urban, rural? That's a great question.
So I think with volunteering in general, we see more in older adults a lot of times because they have the time and also financial resources to spend time volunteering. However, citizen science has this great opportunity to bring in all of these different demographics. So we can bring in youth, we can bring in underrepresented communities. It's just a matter of being intentional in our planning of programming in order to be able to do that. So, yeah.
I think one other thing, one of the panelists just said that anybody can be a scientist. Anybody can be a citizen scientist too. And in some of the interviews I've done, it's often individuals that are career scientists. And in one individual I was speaking with, they had mentioned that, you know, they spend all of this time conducting research in their field, whatever it was. It may have been microbiology. And they publish a paper, and there's this small circle of researchers that get to see their work. And so one of the reasons that a scientist does citizen science is because they feel like they get to interact with more people, and the work that they're doing there has a greater impact. So it can be a very mixed bag. You know, if we're intentional with how we recruit and who we reach out to, but also even just those that self volunteer, it can be pretty mixed.
Yeah, I think it's like with any other science, people need to see themselves represented in the volunteers. So that's really important when you're thinking about planning your project and planning your recruitment for your project, how you're marketing yourself.
Anybody else? That's a good question. We're starting to get some really great questions here, so I'm going to go on to the next one. This one's from Cassandra. And Cassandra asks, how do you see the future of citizen science being brought into the schools curriculum in general? Are there opportunities to bring direct citizen science projects into the classroom setting? For example, Trout in the Classroom can bring the breeding of trout into the school for kids to participate.
So I'll answer that one. That was really the focus of our first Know Your Well project. We worked directly with the teachers, and then immediately found that we had not provided the curriculum to go with with what they needed to involve the students. So I think what we're trying to do, or what we intended to do was create a module that they could then incorporate in the classroom. We're also looking at ways of doing this in after-school programs and through FFA and 4-H and the Scouts. So I think anything that you get excited about that there's a niche for, and promoting your science activities can be made into either a in school or after school program.
I also have in my lap here, I have some of my sit-sci resources, but there are, I'm gonna have to put it in front of me. There are guides with curriculum for different schools. So this one is Citizen Science, 15 lessons that bring biology to life for grades 6 through 12. It's through the National Science Teachers Association. So there aren't a lot of resources out there. I think sometimes though, from what we've learned doing curriculum development in entomology, it's really got to start with the teachers. I think we often develop from what we think the teachers want. And so teachers reaching out to say that they would like to incorporate citizen science in their classroom would probably be the best place to start, because then we'll generate things tailored to what you actually need instead of what we think you need. Another thing, there's this other great book too, The Rightful Place of Science, and it focuses on citizen science. And there's this great chapter in here about all of the dissections that students do in biology labs, and how all of that variety and variability in specimens gets thrown into the trash can after they've compared their specimen to whatever the illustrations and diagrams are. And so the point of that chapter was that there is so much opportunity to bring citizen science into classrooms from pre-K up through college, certainly.
Louise, thanks so much for that comment. If you don't mind, if you can find the link to those resources, that'd be fantastic if you could drop them in the chat. And we're getting lots of great questions, so if you guys don't mind, I'm going to keep moving on to get through them. But excellent questions from the participants. Thank you so much. The next one is from Rachel Simpson, and she says, awesome projects and network, very inspiring. Do you think that one goal of citizen science is to activate people so they're active participants in decision-making and policy direction? For example, communicating their opinions to legislators. So that's one question. She has two parts. The next part is, if so, are there citizen science efforts in Nebraska or elsewhere that really emphasize that piece? Or does this happen organically? Would anyone like to start off with that question? So really, is one of the objectives of citizen science engaging people in policy direction and decision making?
Daniel, you're nodding. Do you want to go for that one? I have a couple.
Yes, yeah, I would. So I mentioned that we encourage the students to present to natural resources districts boards. We've even talked about bringing students to the state legislature. It is so incredible what messages can be delivered by participants that we can't, as educators and scientists, can't deliver. So I think finding the right way to involve our volunteer citizen science in affecting policies that manage our natural resources is a great way to build on a program.
I think there's a tradition too in the sciences and the paradigm, especially that natural sciences come from, where researchers remain unbiased and they try to remain objective. And I think one of the outcroppings of that, a lot of researchers feel that they provide the data and people make the decisions. And I think there is, that's how I was raised in the sciences, but I'm noticing that there are shifts now where researchers are feeling more comfortable, or they're at least testing the waters with they themselves actually getting involved in policy. And that could cause conflict. It may not. I struggle with, is that really an issue? But I think that's a conversation that a lot of researchers are starting to have, whether they can go beyond just providing the data. Can they encourage and recommend policy actions? I think we're seeing that more and more.
Yeah, and what better way to empower people to get involved with policy or stewardship than getting them involved with the science? So they're making these really great connections, not only to the scientific process and increasing that scientific literacy, but also to the resource. So to the birds or the water or whatever it may be. So they're getting this feeling of ownership over these resources, which can be really powerful and translate into those pieces of stewardship or policy.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you have that involvement, I do a lot of work with behavior change and developing empathy. And if you have that involvement, you immediately develop that empathy for that purpose that you have. And so a lot of times it does go further, and they start doing more research and how is the policy affecting what I'm working towards. And so I think it is a natural progression of being involved.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And it does have sort of a sense of happening organically when people are involved with whatever the topic of their project is. You know, for bumblebees, when people understand bumblebees and they start to understand the areas that bumblebees live in and why they're important, it automatically like makes them more curious and want to learn more. And with this huge baseline data set that we're collecting, there have actually been a couple of the top bumblebee researchers that have then used all the data that's collected to be more outspoken or forward in what they're saying about policy or to policymakers on how things need to change, because there is such a strong data set that community scientists have created.
And one other thought, I think too, when it comes to making decisions, a lot of the decisions, there's no way of separating values from when we make decisions, and not everybody's values may be the same. I think one way that citizen science can help is by exposing people to how researchers make decisions. And, you know, I think that's where things can get tricky. If we say like, this is the policy you have to support, you know, I think researchers and the data that we've collected and the work that we do, we've come to a conclusion. And so we've gone through that decision-making process. And so I think probably more valuable would be lifting the curtain on that for people to see how we do that, so that they can pick that skill up for themselves, because the outcome of their decision may be a little different. And we don't want to get in that position where we're telling people what's right. But if we can show them how to make an informed decision so that they can then use that in their own, I think that would be, I think that's one of the powers that citizen science could offer when it comes to policy.
That's great. Very good discussion. Great question from Rachel. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to the next question from Andrea. Andrea brings up a really good point. And I know there's been a lot of discussion in this in the world of citizen science. She says, words are important. Keep in mind, as you have all said, anyone can be involved, so don't limit it to citizens. Consider community science. And so, yeah, this is a really great discussion topic among people in this field. So if you guys would like to chat about this, what are your thoughts on that?
I know Alie and I, we've had in our core group, this conversation has come up a few times, and it's we don't have a good answer yet, you know, because we were considering renaming the Citizen Scientists of Nebraska because of the word citizen, and so we're still working through that. But I think this is on the table for conversation. I don't know if you want to add to that.
So
I
I'm interested.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm interested in what the downside is of calling it citizen science. I've run into that before with our Know Your Well project.
Sure. So citizen can be a loaded term for some people, and it can be a barrier. So people who may not be citizens might feel like they can't participate even though they're community members and they live in that area.
It's exclusive then, that's a connotation?
Right. However, it is also used globally. It's a globally used term, which is another thing to consider.
Okay.
Even the term science for certain communities has negative connotations. There are certain groups that have been tested on and been part of awful experiments. So it's difficult. Language is fascinating. You know, the same word can mean very, very different things and very polar opposite things to different people.
Okay.
At the end of the day, even a perceived barrier is still a barrier. So I do think we have to be as inclusive as possible with our language. I think that's very important.
So is community science a better alternative?
I think it's the better alternative that is being pushed forward currently, yes.
Great discussion. Great topic.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Xerces has made the shift to go with community science just for that fact, to remove barriers that are associated with the word and make our projects feel a little bit more inclusive for everybody.
Excellent. Okay, we have a few more questions. Let's talk about the data in citizen science. So when done well, citizen science projects can not only engage communities in science, but produce real results and data that can contribute to our scientific understanding of the world. In what ways has the data from your project been used by biologists and researchers or other scientists? Or how would you like to see that data being collected, being used in the bigger picture? Could these results have been replicated without utilizing citizen science? So maybe just speak to the utilization of that data that your projects produce and how it's being used in actual research and actual projects.
I was really excited to hear Louise's response to that question. Do you, because I'm curious. I feel like you're the expert in that field.
On ticks, you mean, or?
No, on this last question. How the data is being used.
Right. I guess it
Validity of it.
Right. It depends on the project, and if you want to, there is actually an expert in our state on data validation. I am not her, but I think it depends on the project and what the outcomes are. So I'll save some of that for the spiel later. But for the tick project, it's really to Nebraska is a big state, and I think one of the benefits of citizen science in particular is that you can find needles in the haystack. So there's nothing, what is smaller? Well, I guess there are smaller things, but what's smaller than a tick, especially when they don't want to be found on you. So with that particular project, it's going to be used for monitoring and kind of flagging areas where this new tick species, the black-legged tick or the deer tick, is establishing in the state. We don't know much about how or where it will set up shop, if you will. And then if all of the right pieces of the vector cycle are in place, will it be able to start transmitting Lyme's disease? So that data, when people send in photos, we're looking closely, and we're trying to work with people to get better photos because ticks are small, in the hopes that, there are tick monitoring efforts in the state, and it's just not enough. It's even with the 4 people that are involved in this project, it's one project that we're doing. Some of us are doing outreach, others are teaching, doing all manner of projects. So it's very difficult. So we really, really rely on people to share those instances or interactions that they have with ticks.
I think one of the great things about data collection with citizen science is you can reach such a greater area. You can get more data points, and you can get data from places you might not be able to as just a researcher. So if you're a researcher, you have a small team, you have limited funding, community or citizen science can be a really great way to get a breadth of data that can be really, really useful. And it's something that you wouldn't be able to collect in the same amount of time with the same amount of resources.
So a lot of people don't realize that a private well water quality is not regulated. Really, anyone can put a well down and drink from that well and never have it tested. So the data that these students are collecting would not be available unless the well owners were going to provide that for other purposes. The other thing I like about our project is we're trying to evaluate data quality by doing a comparison and allowing the students, the participants, to make the same comparison. So we're trying to incorporate some quality controls in the data collection process so that anybody that wants to use the data can evaluate how good the data is that is being collected and stored.
Excellent. We have just about 5 minutes left, so I wonder if we can do just a quick kind of lightning round with one last question. So if each of you would like to answer just 1 or 2 sentences, if you can. What is your hope for the future of citizen science? And that's a good last question for this panel.
I would really like to engage educators in classrooms in public education, and especially in elementary classrooms. I just think that engaging in in the scientific process and at that foundation level is so important to begin the understanding of how we could potentially come up with policy, supporting policy decisions and things like that. And I think now more than ever, we need a strong, learned, education in the scientific process.
Yeah, and sort of bouncing off of that, I hope that community science comes to be a little bit more of a prioritization for some organizations, or we need people that are out there where their job is to facilitate and coordinate these projects and have a face for somebody to sort of lead these and create the community and create the space for people to learn and share observations so that that stands on its own in the future, because it's hard to have somebody do the citizen science project and then also do the other 10 things for their normal job. But if we can create priority positions to lead community science, I think that's really going to help add stability to this field.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would love to see citizen science incorporated a lot more and have those underrepresented groups represented, and potentially using the citizen science programming that they have opportunities for as a stepping stone into those scientific fields that everyone needs to be represented in, especially in today's world.
Well, I'd like to see citizen science grow, especially in areas where we need more scientists and engineers, basically so that we can all be better stewards of our natural resources, so that, we'll have something for our future.
I would love to see more co-created projects. We have a lot of, most of the projects out there are contributory. And so they're initiated and created top down by researchers. I'd love to see more co-created projects where it's really the citizens that discover a need and reach out to and recruit the researchers instead. So they kind of hold the reins. And then also I would love for more, especially kids, to discover new species from a biodiversity perspective, especially in Nebraska and in Western Nebraska. We have a lot of areas that are undersurveyed. And I know that there are new bee species, like Katie, solitary bees. Seriously, right? Out in Western Nebraska, I would love for somebody who's not a professional or career scientist to make those discoveries and get to contribute that to different fields.
Excellent.
Yeah, so my hope for citizen science in Nebraska is that it continues to grow and improve. I hope that it's embraced by organizations and agencies that can see the power of citizen science. I hope it's embraced in the schools and curriculum, because it can be such a powerful tool for science literacy. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how citizen science continues to grow and improve in the state.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. That was a fantastic discussion. That wraps up our citizen science panel for today. And thank you so much to the participants for contributing such great questions to facilitate that discussion. So this was amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, and our next presenter, we're right on time, 4 o'clock. So we're gonna have Louise again. She's from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, assistant professor of entomology or of insect biology, and she's going to be talking to us about the ABCs of data validation for citizen science. So Louise, you can go ahead and get started if you're ready.
Amber, you should just go ahead and hit stop recording and then hit start recording right away.
Okay, no problem. I can do that.